Okay, so we are back to Mishlei chapter 12, and the pasuk here is one that I said in the Shiur announcement. This is difficult because it's going to look really obvious. It looks like every pasuk we've done, but we have to try to find the new idea. Okay, so 12:5. Machshavos Tzadikim Mishpat Tachbulos Resha'im Mirma. Who would like to take a stab at trying to translate that?
Is it like the Machshavos? Thoughts of Tzadikim are like mishpat is like justice.
Okay.
Like Tachbulos is like schemes of Resha'im. Mirma are like secretive.
Okay, close. Okay, so hold on just a second. So the thoughts of the tzaddikim are justice, and Yosef said schemes. Schemes is an accurate translation, but I want to use a more neutral one, which is strategies, because I think schemes is appropriate for the Rasha. Okay, but I just want us to be aware that, for example, in that first mission statement in Mishlei, in 1:5, when it's talking about what each audience is going to get from Mishlei, it says Yishma Chacham v'Yosef Lakach. The Chacham will hear, the wise man will hear and will increase his learning. V'Navon, and the understanding person Tachbulos Yikna, will acquire strategies. And their schemes would sound a little weird, but for here it works. So I just want us to be aware that there is a neutral meaning to Tachbulos. Okay, and the schemes of the Resha'im, okay, which is the wicked, are Mirma is anyone have a definition, another translation for Mirma?
Trickiness.
Yeah, trickiness. Okay, yeah. So deception or trickiness. Let's say trickiness. Okay, fine. And then one more thing also, Machshavah is translated as thoughts. That is an accurate thing. If you were to say what, there's lots of words for thoughts. If you were to say what type of thought Machshavah is, do you have a more specific type of translation that would capture what type of thought it is?
So is it usually like a plan?
Plans, yeah. Okay, plans of the righteous are justice. Yeah. Okay. So simple translation. Okay. So then we have Sadigon, who says Machshavos Tzadikim bit mishpat. He adds a bet, and then Tachbulos Resha'im bit mirma. The strategies of the wicked are in or with deception. Okay, so he adds in justice, in or with justice, and then he also says in or with deception. Okay, Targum, I think, is pretty straightforward. It says Machshavah de Tzadike. Oh, and for those who are new, I think we have a new person hidden somewhere. We have a new person. So what we're doing right now is we're translating, and then we're going to look at the minimalist. We're just looking at the translations. Then we're going to raise all the questions. Then we're going to come up with ideas, and then we're going to look at the commentaries. So right now we're in the translation phase. So the Aramaic translation of the Targum says Machshavah de Tzadike Dina Madbranusa de Rashie Ramayusa. So I think the only thing he differs on, he says Machshavah de Tzadike, the thoughts of the plans of the righteous, Dina is law. Okay, he has the word law or judgment. Okay, so let's say law and judgment as two other translations, and then the rest. Madbranusa is just a word for strategies. Durashie of the wicked is Ramayusa, which is trickery. Okay, so that is there. Okay, then we look at our three English translations. Art Scroll says the thoughts of the righteous are just, but the schemes of the wicked are deceit. Okay, that's pretty much what we have. The Living Knox says the intentions of the righteous are to do justice. It adds in the word to do. The designs of the wicked are to deceive. Okay, so they make it into a verb instead of a noun. Alter says the plans of the righteous are justice, the designs of the wicked deceit. Okay, so let us just move all these around so that we can keep this here. Okay, now let's list the questions. And Ariel, if you want to do the honors of asking the question that you're dying to ask.
What's the idea? It sounds a little obvious.
Okay, good. All right, so the main question we're going to have here, for those of us who feel this way, okay, are this is obvious. Okay, what is the chiddush? Okay, and chiddush being the new insight. Okay, now
can I just ask you, like, how would you with Rosati goings, like, how would you read the full pasuk? Like the thoughts of the tzadikim are with justice, or in?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Are with justice or injustice? Bet is a really ambiguous prefix, so not sure. Also, just a point, I just want to mention another methodology point, maybe because I'm on a methodology kick right now, but this morning we did kind of brush up against the idea that, everyone should look for a chiddush in everything that they learn. Okay. However, chidushim are relative to where you're at in learning. So for some people, this might be a brand new idea, and for them that's sufficient. But we, again, when I say we, I mean like the core regulars here probably are not satisfied with just saying, okay, yeah, it's saying that tzadikim think about justice and Resha'im think about so we have to go beyond that. Okay, so that's why we're pushing. Okay, next is Isaiah.
So what's the difference between Machshavos and Takbulos?
Okay, what is the difference?
Like the same thing.
Okay, what is the difference between Machshavos, which we're translating as thoughts and plans, and Takbulos, which is strategies and schemes? Okay, they seem very similar. Okay, Yosef. I don't need to say this. Yeah, Yosef. Yeah.
Yeah. Why are we comparing mishpat and mirma? Right. Like.
Yeah.
It's not. First of all, mirma is not necessarily like deception, right? Like just based off the translation, like it could be like in private or like b'mirma or like in secret, right? So like, why are we comparing like trickiness or like?
Let's just. I just want to double check something. Hold on, because you did translate it as in secret, and I didn't believe you. And then now, when you quoted that pasuk when you said b'mirma, in that context, it does mean in secret. So I just want to see what the translations are here. Wait, 24 is our morning chapter. We are on 12. Mirma, treachery, deceit. Treachery, deceit, deceptive, balances. So I guess if it means secret, it's going to be because that is often how you pull off your deception, is by like doing something secretively. I think though I'm pretty sure I'm right that the primary meaning is deception or trickiness. Right. So say your question again.
So why would we say though? Sorry, I have a cold. Why would we compare like tzidkus to, mishpat to mirma? Right? Doesn't that feel like more like yashar or like I don't know. I feel like mishpat like just justice compared to
right. So usually you'd say justice. Usually you would contrast justice to injustice, right? Or wickedness, and mirma, and deceit to honesty, right? And truth, right.
Why are we comparing? Yeah, it just seems like
how are these opposites? Okay, that's a great question. Okay, Tamar.
What does it mean that the thoughts of the tzadikim or the plans are mishpat, and similarly for the second part, that the plans are mirma?
Okay, what does it mean by the thoughts and plans of the tzadikim are mishpat? Okay, and same for second half. Okay, right. Meaning usually we think of mishpat, of justice, as a quality, or we speak of it as like an abstract entity and say that the thoughts are in line with justice. We don't say that they are justice. I mean, I only know one being whose thoughts are justice, and I don't even know that being, and that being is God. So we don't say that. And for that, for God, you wouldn't say God's thoughts are in line with justice, because that would imply that like God is subordinate to some other system of justice, which of course is what Avraham Avinu said, as he said, Hashovet kol haaretz lo ya'aseh mishpat, is the judge of all the earth, not going to do justice, but whatever. So, but I get your question. Okay, good question, Ariel.
What's the actually I have a couple questions. What's the subject of the pasuk?
Okay. What is the subject of the pasuk? And just because you asked that this morning, I just want to elaborate on that for people who are not familiar. So this is I'll repeat what I said this morning, is my Mishlei Rabbi Moskowitz held that this question should be asked, this is part of his method, that this should be asked every for every pasuk, and he insisted that this question always clarifies what the pasuk is. And if you can't answer this question, then it means you're missing something in the pasuk. So in this case, is this a pasuk about thinking? Is this a pasuk about, justice? Is this a pasuk about deception? What is the subject? And Rabbi Moskowitz held that you should really be able to state this in like a phrase. So yeah, go ahead.
And I was also gonna ask, it seems a little like who's it? I guess who's the audience? Because like if you know he's a Rasha, right? Why would you ever listen to him?
Okay, yeah.
What's the case? I guess.
Yeah. So who's the audience? What is the practical decision-making scenario and application here? Yeah. Isaiah.
Okay, so this is within tomorrow's last question. I'm not sure if it's a good expansion, but is it that the Mishpat and Mirma are like the goal of the Machshavos and Tafulos? Like they're trying to accomplish Mishpat and they're trying to accomplish Mirma, or is it that like the Mishpat and Mirma are the content of their thoughts?
Okay, yeah. Right. So I'm gonna say I'll just add on to here. How do the terms mishpat and mirma qualify their respective clauses? Okay, and I agree with the two possibilities you mentioned here. Hold on, I'm just going to put this in here just for the sake of those who can't follow the Hebrew. And then I will call on Rifki momentarily. Let's see there, and then Nirma. Okay, Rifki.
Yeah, so first, is the Russia like the only character that would be described as having those types of like schemes or strategies?
Good question, because, well, okay, let's put it this way. We saw that the Navon, that the person of understanding, has strategies, but his strategies seemingly are not deception, right? But the Russia has strategies that are deception. So are you asking like, is this unique to the Russia, or could the fool also have it, or like the other bad guys? Yeah.
Like I was just thinking like, and I guess this isn't just a question on this specific pasuk, but more on like, a meta question on like Mishlei characters in general, that like, I guess I feel like in our learning, we kind of have like very clear ideas generally of like each character. So I guess I'm just wondering like, is this just a mashal for, a different type of person that doesn't necessarily a Russia, but like could have that type of quality? Or could it also be like a Kasil is a little harder because like we know that he's like not necessarily the sharpest tool in the shed, but yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask your question in a different way, which is what do we mean by Tzadikim and Resha'im in this context? Okay, so we know that in Mishlei, whenever it uses these terms, sometimes it uses them in a technical jargon sense, and sometimes it uses it in a generic sense. So is this, are they being used in a technical jargon sense, Mishlei jargon sense? Or are they used generically? And then either way, how unique are these qualities to these individuals? I hope that makes sense. Okay, Ariel.
Yeah. Are all strategies from Resha'im bad, and are all thoughts of Tzadikim good?
Okay,
Meaning,
yeah.
Like I guess my question is like, maybe for one specific individual it could be good, and from
Right. Okay, so I'm going to just ask this. I'll ask this as a separate question. How literally should we take the absoluteness of this pasuk, right? Are all thoughts of tzadikim mishpat? Are all strategies of Resha'im mirma? Yeah, Tamar.
I think this is on the question of like the last question, the practical decision-making
Yeah.
scenario. So I guess I'm wondering sort of what is the cause and effect? Like what's the choice and what's the consequence?
Okay, yeah, that's a good way to ask it. What is the decision and what is the consequence in either half? Yeah, Ayala?
So this is again following up on the question about Tzadikim or Resha'im, and like I guess a different way to ask it maybe is like, are these characteristic of Tzadikim or Resha'im, or is this like a side point?
Okay, yeah. When you say a side point, you mean like are these like essential qualities or like?
Yeah, that's what I
Okay,
mean.
yeah. All right. So where was that one? Oh, that was on this question, I think. Yeah. Also, are these wait, no. That was that one? Yeah, right. So are these essential qualities or accidental? Yeah. I'll say incidental. For those who are not familiar with the philosophical jargon. Okay, yeah, Ariel?
Yeah, and just and you know, from the pasuk, it's given that you know who they are, right? Like you know that they're Resha'im.
Yeah,
and-
meaning right. Meaning in order to implement this pasuk, you have to know that this person is a tzaddik and that person's a Rasha. Yeah. Yeah, Rifki?
Yeah, just methodology for trying to come up with an idea.
Yeah.
In terms of just thinking about the difference between Machshavah and whatever the other one was, I don't even know. So should we think of it? I feel like thoughts is more different than schemes or strategies, whereas plans is more similar. So do you think that one English translation is better to think of?
Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined just because of the way I've seen. Yeah, you know what? In fact, I'm gonna change the order of this. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that that the main meaning is plan, and plan is very similar to takbulos in the sense that both of them are thoughts that translate into action or that are primarily directed to action.
Okay.
Yeah. I always said, I don't know if you remember this in Shalhavet, I always said that, you know, they had this 11th grade Machshavah class, I think, and I always said that, you know, Machshavah, technically speaking, I think is not the best name because Machshavah is like, well, at least for what the class was, because it was more about Jewish philosophy, you know, but that's how people use the term Machshavah nowadays, you know, even some of us in our podcast. So yeah. Okay, I think that about covers it. Let me do what I usually do, which is copy and paste this into the chat. So
there's Notice?
yes.
I had one I was going to ask
Oh,
about.
sure. I didn't see your hand. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm not sure if this was covered. I was trying to make sure it wasn't, but so on the Machshavos versus Tachbulos, is there like an order, like implied order, like one before the other? Like it's maybe one is the preliminary.
Okay, I think that's a good question to tack on to here, which is what is the relationship between these two types of thinking? Yeah. Is there an order? Okay. Fair enough. Okay. So did I post that into the chat or did I just intend to? Okay, I posted into the chat. Okay, so let's do what we usually do at this point, which is take a minute to think, and then we will prioritize. If you have an idea, a complete idea or a near complete idea, then you can raise your hand, and we'll start with those, and then we'll go into the half-baked ideas after that. Okay, maybe I can fit it all on the screen. Yeah, that's no, not quite. Wait, I could do it. There we go. Hopefully that's not too no, hopefully that's not too small. Okay. Okay, so first will be Yosef, and then my dad, and then Rifty. Go ahead, Yosef.
Okay, so I think the pasuk saying something like this is just the way that a tzaddik operates versus the way a rasha operates, like intellectually speaking. And it's saying that a tzaddik operates, right, like similar to it, like mishpat, meaning that he is like evaluating things and looking for fairness and looking for justice. Whereas a rasha is looking, the reason why he uses tachbulos, not exactly sure why he uses mirma, but I think the reason why it's using tachbulos is because it's more functional, and it's saying that it's saying that a rasha is more just looking to get to a certain outcome of his, and it's saying that it's just telling you how each of them operates, so that like if you were to interact with, and there's a practical ramification, is that if you were to interact with them, like what to expect, like because if you are coming from a more idealistic framework and you're dealing with someone who doesn't have like the same framework as you, then it's gonna be hard because you're not familiar with their general ideas, and you're not gonna know how they operate, versus if you do know how they will, then you can know to expect, oh, maybe they're really just looking to deceive me, or they're really looking to like just get a certain result, and they're not actually like looking out for me or looking out for what's fair.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just restate that and make sure I understand it. So the audience of the pasuk is someone who's dealing with these people, and it's saying that if you are dealing with tzadikim, then you can rely on the fact that they are going to be aiming, or at least, obviously they have a particular goal in that particular interaction, but their overall framework is going to be for fairness and justice. Whereas if you're interacting with the rasha, then they're going to be engaging in scheming in order to bring about some sort of result, probably one that is satisfying to them, irrespective of justice, and that they're going to employ deceit in order to get there, probably because that's a shortcut way to do that. So right. I'm just going to push you one step. I like the approach, and actually I'll say an example of this is, I believe, and I guess my mom or my dad could correct me if I'm wrong on this. If you ask my brother Johnny the least favorite country he's been to out of the 40 plus countries he's been to, Egypt is the worst. And he said in Egypt, just every single interaction that you have is people trying to swindle you, and like he said, and the fact that it is every single person, I think is what I think I like. I'm he's saying that about a country, and like Yosef was saying that about like the category of like Resha'im, like you have to go in. I think people have this like, I think most of us are not Resha'im. So we have this like, we may be tempted to lie or cheat, but there has to be like a specific temptation. That's not how we operate, but you have to realize this is how the Resha'im operate. And so like that is going to allow you to protect yourself a lot from their machinations. Or I'll give you another example. I'm not saying that this is Resha'im, but I was listening to someone last night talk about what it's like to do business with certain types of Israelis, and he said that like, he was talking about, I think he was talking about like either in real estate or like a Pesach program. He was talking about multiple things. So I wasn't listening the whole time, but he said like these guys who he was dealing with would, it's just part in the culture, I guess maybe the merchant culture or whatever. They would make a deal, and then they would just change it last minute before he signs the thing, and like just try to like push the thing under wraps. It's just like you have to like pin these guys down and get them to actually like put everything in writing, and then like make sure that they're signing to it, because they're just going to try to constantly manipulate, I don't know which group he was talking about, but like, that's the type of thing. I mean, like, this is the modus operandi of the rasha, and you need to be on guard against that. So the question I want to push you for is, so what's the chiddush? Like, what's the new idea? And I feel like we are getting there, but I don't feel like we have it yet.
I think the idea is saying that it's just giving you, I think it's saying like the overall framework of them is this, like, I'm trying to give an example, but like I was talking with my dad, right? And he said, like, he was telling me about like in his business, right? Like dealing with Jews versus dealing with like random people. Like he said that when you are he said like when you're dealing with Jews, they will like he was dealing with like B&H one time, right, which is run by Satmar Jews. And he said like they were willing to, when they totally didn't have to, right, like there'd be no punishment for them, but like or like any like harm to them. Like my dad like deserved a refund on something, and he made his argument to them. And they were like, yeah, he deserves it, and they gave it to him when they really like didn't need to.
Uh-huh.
And he said that like, and he just said overall dealing with like more idealistic people just makes it makes your business a lot easier. But I think what it's saying is that like in all, it's not just in terms of their relationship to like mishpat alone that they're thinking that way. It's their whole, it defines their whole framework in terms of everything.
Okay, so maybe that might answer the question that that Rivki was asking about why, or not exactly Rivki's question, but machshavos, meaning plans, is very close to takbulos, but thoughts is not, and maybe that's why it's using it. And maybe this is kind of also in the first step that you made, Yosef, about how like it is their actions, but really what we're talking about is the whole way that they think about the world.
Right.
is for the sake of justice and fairness, whereas the Resha'im are only geared towards the practical outcome. Yeah, okay, so I think that's good. Let's leave this on the front burner, okay, and just see if we can refine it, or if someone else has an idea that's going to merge with this. Okay.
Can I say something about that? Or
yeah, sure. Yeah, let's do that. If anyone has anything to say about this approach, or if they feel that their approach is like this, then go ahead and say something. Yeah, tomorrow.
So I just another comment about the chiddush, which I think you kind of said implicitly, but maybe you could spell this out as a chiddush, is that if you operate a certain way, like let's say you have a concept of justice, then it might be hard. It's there. I think that there's an intuition to just assume that people are like kind of working within a similar framework.
Yeah.
So maybe this could be a practical reminder to go against that intuition.
Okay. Yeah. So so I'm just gonna. Oops, I did not mean to not share. I'm just gonna add this note here, which is specific audience is someone who is prone to assuming that the people he's dealing with share the same orientation that he does. Okay, that I think we still need a little bit more work on that, but that's let's I think that's good. Yeah. Anyone else have something to this? Yeah, go ahead, Ariel.
Actually, yeah. So I was gonna, add on to what Yosef was saying. Maybe the chiddush could be that, like if you already have this framework of like, Resha'im, their general trajectory is, wickedness versus Tzadikim, they kind of want to do good. So, I think the challenge can be that, sometimes, what the tzaddik does specific to me may not necessarily seem good at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And also with the Rasha, like he may sometimes give you advice or something that may seem good, but you have to recognize that at the end of the day, like he has an agenda that will probably, ruin you, right?
Yeah.
So I think maybe the chiddush lies in, kind of like putting aside your feelings towards the advice specifically, but really focusing on the character, because the idea may seem good. I mean, the advice may seem good for you, but it takes that extra step to really see past it.
Okay, I think that's a good approach also, and I'm struggling whether that is a separate approach or not. But I'll tell you what I like about it is that we think of justice as being like I don't know how to say this. The way the Rambam defines, justice, I think if I just said justice, then you think of it as like one concept. But the way that the Rambam defines justice in the Mor Nevuchim 354, 353 is the execution of the law for good or for reward or for punishment. So like it's basically like a sentencing, like the carrying out of the law. Okay, like as a sentence. So like Ariel's saying, you could be the subject of a verdict that is bad for you, and it would be a mistake then to say, well, this person, to dismiss this person and say, well, they're corrupt, or they're driven by personal agendas. if they're a tzaddik, really, it could be that if they're a tzaddik, then it really is for, is in line with what is good for the system. I'll give you an example of this. I might have shared this example before, but when I was in the dorm in yeshiva in my first year, then Moshe Menachem Chait was the dorm counselor, and he was a very just guy. And there's the system in the dorm was that you got a kanas, you got a penalty if you were late to minyan. And there was one time that I was late, and it was because my alarm ran out of batteries and my roommate's alarm was set wrong. And I remember trying to appeal to him and to the dorm counselor, saying I've made every single minyan on time, and clearly I could show you the alarm clocks. And he said, I know, but I have to keep to the system, and I admired that because it was in line. You can't just have a system where you're just making exceptions left and right, unless you do what I did as dorm counselor and you build it into the system that you get a certain number of freebies, but then that's part of the system, And similarly on the other side, like Ariel's saying, I think this is the more common case where the Russia deceives you, is engaged in deception, but it's in your favor, so you don't question it because it's beneficial to you, you turn a blind eye because you're going to get a perk from this, not realizing that if the Russia is doing that, then he is using you, and he's also going to gain advantage, which he could then use to harm you in the future, So I think that I've talked myself into saying that this is a separate idea. Okay. Meaning, I see it's related, but I want to just highlight this here, which is that I'm just taking this in note form now, which is that, don't judge the tzaddik or the Russia based on whether the outcome of their plan affects you beneficially or detrimentally. Instead, judge them based on how they operate. Okay, that's the summary of this plan. Okay, anyone else have any additions to any of these two ideas? Sorry to go out of order.
I think mine is.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
It's very much. My thought is, you have to be suspicious, but you can't be too suspicious. No matter how good, the Russia, the good sociopath will really convince you that he's on your side. He wants to help you, and you just have to be suspicious of anything he does, with that thought in mind. But you can't be that suspicious with the tzaddik, that it may not look like it's in your favor. It may seem to you even in some way unfair, but this is a person who you can trust will make his moves with justice.
Right. Okay, good. So this is actually a halacha, which I will try to find from a source sheet, which I hope I have. Say it again.
Oh yeah. Fine.
What was that? Okay, I guess it was not for me.
No, I was just saying, I was just wondering if you're talking about on the Machshavah, and then I saw the screen.
Yeah, I was, yeah. Okay, so in Pirkei Avos 1:6, it says, you should judge each person favorably. So the Rambam says, and this is, he's talking how we hold, you should judge every person favorably. Inyano, the idea is, if there's a person who is not known to you, like you just don't know who they are, you don't know if he's a tzaddik or a Russia, and you see him doing something or saying something, if you explain it in one way, then it's good. And if you explain it in another way, then it's bad. So what should you do? Parshehu katov. You should explain it for the good. Val takshov bo ra, and you should not judge him unfavorably. Okay, we're actually not going to talk about that. What we were going to talk about is the next two cases. If there is a person who is known to be righteous, and he has a reputation for doing good, and you see him doing something that all indications are that it's bad. Okay, you don't know for sure that it's bad, but all of the circumstantial evidence is that it's bad. And the only way you can judge it as good is through forced reasoning and with remote possibilities. You need to, this is not halakha, but it's good to interpret it for the good. since it is possible for it to be good, and it's not permissible to be suspicious of him. And regarding this, the sages say, anyone who's suspicious of people who are kosher, people who are like good in their actions, is should get whiplashes. If someone is publicly known to be a Rasha, and you see the guy doing something that all indications are that it's good, and there's a remote possibility that it's for bad, you need to guard yourself against him, and not to believe any good of him, because it's possible for it that it was bad. This is from Mishlei 26:25. Even if he's gracious with his voice, don't believe him because there are 7 abominations in his heart. But if the guy's not known, and the action is ambiguous, you need to, by way of piety, you need to judge him favorably. So again, I'm not talking about the case of judging an average guy favorably, but what my dad was saying about how if this is someone who is a tzaddik and it looks like what he's doing is really bad, you really should go to the nth degree to try to figure out how what he's doing is really good. And if you see someone who's known to be bad, you should be suspicious that he's really doing this bad thing, even if it looks good. And I think the easiest way to do that is what the pasuk is saying is you should assume that there's some deception involved here, that there's some lie, some false front here. And again, it does not mean that Resha'im can't do good or that Tzadikim can't do bad. And if you have evidence, if the Tzadik has the meat cleaver and he says, I just murdered a person, then you should believe that he did bad, But if just indication, circumstantial evidence. Okay, good. All right, Rivki.
So before we said all this, I had a clear idea overall, but I think that I still have some thoughts, and I'm not sure if they'll fit into anyone specifically or not.
Okay, sure.
But basically, I was thinking that this is about because it specifically doesn't mention any action, that this is really about literally the thoughts behind the tzaddik and Rasha's plans.
Yeah.
So what I was thinking was that kind of similar. I don't remember who said this at this point. It might have been RL. But similarly to what he was saying, that you have to, first of all, go by that, but also I think that see the results of what that specific person has done in the past, meaning that you can think that someone is a tzaddik, but then I feel when you start speaking to people, not in a lashon hara way, but more of this person wants to hire me for a job or whatever, have you heard anything about this corporation or whatever it would be?
Yeah.
And I think that, the more time that this person has been doing deceitful things, then the more likely it will be that that person is going to be found out. So kind of I was thinking about it in a more as the neutral person of trying to make a decision of whether it's for a job or electing someone or whatever it would be, that I was thinking that these people are in a somewhat of a position of power, and that you can't just go based off of what is on the outside, but also what they've done in the past. And therefore, that includes their plans, because obviously what they have done is based off of things that they have thought about in the past. So kind of just taking those two things into account of, plans are always, not always, but plans often sound good, but you also have to take into account the actual outcomes of those plans.
Okay, so I like what you noticed, which is that the pasuk doesn't specify actions, but where you went with it, I'm not entirely sold on, in terms of it turns out that according to you, then according to the way I'm hearing you right now, is that what the pasuk is telling you to do is looking at their actions as a reflection of their plans, and so actions does become a factor in this. So in other words, where I thought you were going was since the pasuk doesn't mention actions, then this is really not about actions. This is really just about plans. But then the idea you're suggesting to me seems to then focus on a history of actions.
Well, I guess that does make a lot of sense. I guess the reason why I'm inclined to say that is because it's very hard to like obviously tell someone's literal thoughts.
Right.
Because
You only see the
why?
results. Right.
Exactly. So like that's why I was saying like, and not going to that specific person. Like I don't think it would be the best idea
Yeah.
to go to Russia and be like, oh well, like what do you think about this, or how did you come up with that? I think
Right.
that by speaking, that's why I was thinking about the position of power, because
Yeah.
like that's why you would be asking other people and not the actual person themselves.
Okay, so I can buy that idea. I'm just going to note it here, which is that since you can't know a person's thoughts, all you have is the track record of the fruits of their plans. So if a tzaddik's plans consistently result in justice, then you can assume that their thoughts are of that trend. And if a Russia's plans consistently manifest as deceit, then you can assume that their thoughts are of that nature. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
One more thing also, just because I forgot about that,
Yeah.
is that I think also this is similar to what someone else said, but that every single part of what the tzaddik is doing is justice. So
Yeah.
I think like for looking at a Russia, that you might think like, oh, well, like, they made $20 million, but they used like 10 million of that or 5 million of that for whatever it would be. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
something that is a really bad thing.
Right.
So I think like that's another thing to take into account, is that when you're looking at whatever decision to go to, whatever it may be, that it has to be, like you were saying, consistently in line with what we would say justice is. And even if it might even overall be good, if there's even like an inkling of something that's like, smells or is bad, then you
Yeah.
shouldn't go for it.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good approach. Yeah, Chizkiyahu?
Okay, so this is kind of going on what Yosef was saying, but
Yeah.
also kind of I'm trying to get more further in the Kiddush part of it.
Yeah.
And so my understanding of what a tzaddik is kind of was recently, I think, kind of changed a little bit, or maybe redefined as from the word matzdik, which is to justify. And so like a tzaddik is someone who he sees the reality around him, and because he's like usually, I think maybe always a chacham, he understands the laws of nature, and by not laws of nature, I'm saying like how Hashem operates and judges the world. And so he always sees it as just, as correct. And so he's justifying the Hashem. That's what a tzaddik is. And so like conversely, a Rasha is someone who sees everything as negative and not for his benefit. And so this pasuk is kind of going, I would think, on that line of thinking that it's showing you this sort of a motivation, and not just, we all know that a tzaddik thinks bad things and has bad strategies, but that there is like a type
You mean,
of
wait, a tzaddik or a Russia?
sorry, a Russian. Yeah. So, but also like why that is, and that it's because while the tzaddik is almost like a student of life, and he doesn't necessarily go out with some goal, even necessarily good or bad. It's just like he is there to understand.
Mhm.
And he takes, I almost look at it as like sort of the archetype that's laid down by like Yaakov versus Esav, whereas Esav was like a hunter, and everything he did was always out with the intention of going out and not just understanding the nature around him, but exploiting it and conquering it. And so there's like this take, and always with that, and a lot of times even when we think about it, at first we think of it as industrious and it can be good, but it's almost like there's a subtle chiddush here, which is you have to be careful with that kind of thinking, because when you go out and you aren't just studying reality, but you're kind of quick to judge it, you're doing that from like a self-serving nature that we have. And so that is the difference between like the why it's the thoughts of a tzaddik versus the, I guess, going with the definition or the translation of schemes. Or
Okay, so tell me if this is going to be a good summary of what you're saying. So this pasuk is about the different ways in which the tzaddik and the Russia see the world. Okay, so the tzaddik is someone who is seeking to understand the justice in Hashem's world,
right.
And if they don't see that, you didn't say this point, but I think this is implicit, don't see it, they'll assume that they're missing something and will continue to seek understanding.
Right.
Okay, the Rasha, when confronted with something that appears unjust, will warp his understanding of reality, that's the deception, to conform to the subjective view that he wishes to have of the world, and will use all sorts of strategies to accomplish that.
Yeah, that's a great synthesis, especially because you reflected a thing I also didn't say, but I intended to, which was that this isn't just about how you affect other people and how
Yeah.
people feel about you and trust you or not, but that you're even tricking yourself ultimately.
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. That's a very different kind of idea than what we usually have, but I think it works out. It's a good idea. Okay. Alex.
Can I just add one thing on top of what you're
Sure.
saying?
Yeah. Sorry, Alex. Yeah. Yosef, go ahead.
So sorry, I didn't mean to
That's
interrupt,
okay.
but I think also this idea of that Tzaddik has a general outlook, and that Russia also has general outlook, can be used in like diagnosing where you are in your level. Like that idea can be used in terms of dealing with other people, but also assessing yourself. Meaning, like if I see myself using like mishpat when it regards to like when I actually have to deal with like I don't know, learning, or like or when I'm dealing with like where I have to make decisions for like other people or whatever it is. But then in other areas like business or whatever it is, I see myself not using that. So then
Right.
I could use that as like an assessment tool to
Yeah.
see where you're at.
That's a
Like,
good
let me-
point. Right. That one of the qualities of the tzaddik, the way that, the way we're all describing it, but the way Chizkiyahu is describing it is this is going to be consistent, that he has to see everything, justice in everything. So if there's any sort of inconsistency, then that's like, that's a red flag. Yeah.
Right. Because I'm saying it's not just like how he deals with the world. It's like how he deals with like him, how he sees his own act, like how he's viewing his own actions.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, he uses it as a diagnostic tool.
Yeah. All right, good. Yeah, I'm going to add that word, diagnostic tool. Yosef is diagnostic tool. Okay. All right, Alex, you're up.
So my idea is a little bit half-baked. Feel free
Oh,
to
that's
cook
fine.
it more.
Okay.
But I was conceptualizing it kind of in a way where it's about like self-deception. The tzaddik like does something by the book, the correct way,
Yeah.
that's in line with justice. But the like shortcuts that Russia might use are really just like self-deception, because you're fooling yourself. You're doing something properly when you're not.
Okay. So I have also a half-baked idea, but I don't know if those are the two halves of the same cookie. So I'm trying to think if I want to deploy that now or wait until afterwards. Actually, I think I'm going to say it now. I'm going to err on the side of caution. Sorry for interjecting here before everyone else, but so I was thinking that so we've said that the tzaddik, the Mishlei tzaddik, is someone who thinks in terms of who sees himself as part of a system. Okay, so I think you could just take it literally that his thoughts are systems, like he thinks in terms of systems. Systems thinking pervades his thought. Okay, that's what it means. Machshavah Tzadikim mishpat. Okay, I'll explain what that means in a second, or maybe I won't. Maybe that's the half-baked idea. But the Tachbulos Resha'im Mirma, Resha'im are not concerned with the system. The definition of the Rasha, the way we've developed it through chapter 10 and chapter 11, is that he has one goal, which is his own aggrandizement, his own power, his own greatness. And what he's going to do is he's going to take any shortcut he can. That's the Tachbulos. I think Tachbulos comes from the word chevel, which means like a rope or a cord. At least I saw someone say that. And he's just going to try to tie anything together in order to result in him being on top. And that is going to involve mirma. It's going to involve certainly mirma of other people, tricking other people in order to like take advantage of them. But it's going to involve self-deception also, because he's going to be denying his actual like nature or actual role in the system. And that is that, like Alex was saying, is going to involve like self-deception and shortcuts. That's my half-baked idea. Alex, does that sound all similar to you, or am I projecting what I'm saying into your approach?
I feel like they could fit together.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe it's possible I'm missing something, but we at least have two half-baked ideas right now from that approach. Okay, so let's also leave that on the front burner. Okay, Yosef, you have another approach, or is that left overhand? All right, I'm gonna assume it's left overhand. Moshe.
Yeah, so I don't really know how much I care for like making about like a specific like interaction with an individual. It seems more to just be making a point about like something that's like intrinsic to like tzaddik or the Rasha.
Yeah, definitely
Like,
reads that way.
Yeah, so it's not like a matter of like, oh, when you are like dealing with one of the like a person, like your personality should have a factor and like which like how you should view the trade or something. I think it's more just trying to like the hirsche would be like not only is this like how people, it's not just a matter of like how they act like consciously, it's like there's something intrinsic about like who they are or like their personality that's gonna lead these types of people to start acting in a certain way. And so it's not, I don't know if it's like a specific case where it's like, okay, like when you're dealing with someone, it's more just like a practical, like an advice to like who to deal with in general, right?
Okay, so are you so let me just make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. So you're saying that the pasuk is talking to a non-tzaddik and non-Rasha who is potentially interacting with these two groups of people? Is that okay? And then and then what is it telling? And it is telling them something not about how the tzaddik and the Rasha act, but like about how they think, how they operate, right? Like just the way that they, you use the word intrinsic. You didn't mean intrinsic like it's part of who they are and they can't change it. You meant just like this is just a consistently like essential thing in how they act, or did you mean something else?
I mean it's kind of like similar though, how I was using it, I think.
Okay, so what is the tell me again what the practical
so it's more of like an advice of like who to be like operating with in general. Like if you had to operate with people, like probably to, the tzaddik is just inherently going to be, like a just person.
Okay, so let me ask you a question which I have an answer for, but I think this question might propel it into the Chiddush realm. So why would, if you know this guy's a Rasha and he uses deception, why would you interact with him? Like, why does someone need to be told not to interact with a Rasha who deals deceptively?
Well, it's the point isn't to say like you can never interact with a Rasha, I think, or there's no like an individual case. It's giving like the point is I think like an overall like generalization,
right? But why
would in the situation?
Why would you need to be told that? Like that seems obvious, like if this guy is a Rasha and he uses strategies of deceit, why would I need to be told not to interact with him? That should be obvious to me.
But it's
Well,
not.
I mean, it's making a point about like how it's intrinsic. I mean, is it not like, I feel like that the intrinsic part is the fish, no?
Okay, so can you just talk that out more? Maybe I'm just not seeing it.
Like, okay, so maybe you could
We'll
have
give me an
thought that,
example. You
like,
could also give me an example if that helps.
okay, maybe you could have thought that like 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 interacting with like a tzaddik is just a matter of okay, like he's a good person, so there's like a kal v'chomer in that he may be honest, but like the Chiddush here is like no, there's something just like intrinsic about his nature that this is just going to be a part of who he is, and vice versa.
Okay, can anyone pick up on the line of intuition, because I'm not fully getting it.
I think I mean I don't know if this is what you're saying, Moshe, but I mean maybe to answer your question is that of why you would deal with a Rasha in the first place is that a Rasha is you would think that in some way that he wouldn't be a Rasha to you, or that it wouldn't affect you.
Okay, that's what I was thinking also, right?
so which means that on some level he appeals to you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why it's mirmas, because it's saying like he'll appeal to you in some way, he'll try to identify with you, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it's saying to you is that you cannot, like, you shouldn't, it's saying to you that you have to be reminded that a person who is a Rasha, despite their charm and despite whatever relationship you think you have with them, their nature is still that they're a Rasha.
Right. This is who he is. This is who the guy is. It doesn't matter that you view yourself as special, Yeah.
And so, but the same thing is the like opposite with a tzaddik. Like, even if you don't have a good relationship with him, like, whatever it is, like if you dislike him in some way, you still know you can rely on him if he has a good character.
Okay, that's
Right. And because
yeah.
I was wondering, like, why does it need to say, like, the tzaddik one seems a little even more obvious than don't deal with Resha'im.
Yeah, right.
But if you think about it, no, in the case where like you really dislike the guy or you have a bad relationship with him, you know that he's going to be just he'll put aside those differences, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. Because in his nature, he deals in mishpat, he deals in justice.
Right. Yep.
Right.
I've had very few interactions of this nature, but there have been people who, again, I'm not saying tzaddik like in the sense that like Moshe Rabbeinu tzaddik. I've had certain interactions with people who fall in the Mishlei spectrum of tzaddik, who I clash with, who I don't like, or we just don't get along. But I know that they will be, they'll conduct themselves as a tzaddik, and so that's like, I think the chiddush here. So let me just try to put this into words. So don't fall into the trap of thinking that that the Russia won't behave like a Russia to you. In reality, this is how he operates, and he won't make exceptions just because you're you, and you need to be on guard against that. So too, even if there are personal reasons why you would be disinclined to interact with the tzaddik, you should know that he will operate honestly and with justice no matter what, not because you are who you are, but because he is who he is. Okay, that was a good, I hope that was a good team effort.
I don't know if it's
Can I
that
ask a question about this?
Moshe, what were you saying?
I don't know if it's that like practical, where to the point where it's like recommending you that to like never interact or like never interact with the Russia. I mean, like I was trying to get at, like, it's not, I don't know if how much of it was like a matter of the interaction.
Right. So
It's
this
just,
gets
like,
gets down to a certain approach about how we approach Mishlei. There are definitely Mefarshim who learn Mishlei that is just teaching you non-practical ideas, like just theoretical ideas, in the same way that, for example, Tehillim will teach you ideas about Tzadikim and Resha'im that don't have any practical application. That's just about the nature of the Tzaddik and the Rasha. The way I learn Mishlei, based on, all the way I learned Mishlei, but also based on like the intro statement that this is Ladas Chachma Musar and all the mission statements of Mishlei, is that it has to be practical. And so even if it is teaching you something about the nature of the tzaddik, we have to translate it into practical ideas. And that's, you're definitely entitled to put the focus on just the understanding of who they are. But for I'm not going to be satisfied unless it's translated into practicality, which is why we are taking that approach. So I think it's a good, let's put it this way. The approach that you took, I think, does translate well into a practical idea. Whether or not that's what Shlomo intends is for him to decide. Okay, yeah. Tamara, what were you saying?
There's a question about this idea.
Yeah.
So I hear the idea in general, but I don't see why it has to do with thoughts and plans as opposed to like actions.
Right. Good question. Let me think about that. Or we can all think about that.
Could I jump in?
Go ahead.
Because the reason is because that when we're talking about like isolated actions, we're not talking about like the reason why I'm talking about Machshavos and Tachbulos is because when you is that you could see a good action of a Rasha, right? Like you could see he's doing something in front of you. Like, for example, let's say, I don't know, you're walking with him, you're talking about something, and he like gives to a poor person on the street. But you have to understand that what's really going to drive his actions is his framework. And so even if he's doing something like that, that might just be for deceit or whatever, or for some other ulterior motive and not for justice, right? You have to view that person in terms of how does this fit into their framework, right? And so you say that all of how you deal with a person should go by their framework and not by like a specific action.
Right. In other words, you have to, I like the way you said that. You have to look past their actions and just look at what is the type of thinking that goes on in this person's head. And if you understand the nature of the tzaddik and the nature of the Rasha, about what is driving their entire agenda. Are they driven by seeking justice, or and then all of their thoughts are justice, or are they driven by this, kind of getting at what I was trying to say with Alex's idea, or are they driven just for self-serving aggrandizement through any means? Then like that's thoughts are going to be the way that you realize the reality of this idea.
That's interesting. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to Ayala and then Ariel and then Chizkiyahu, and then let's look at some of Farshim.
Mine was just an add-on to Yosef. It wasn't like
okay, sure.
Also, I feel like we did sort of implicitly answer it, and by saying, as Yosef said, like, don't think he's not going to be a Rasha to you.
Yeah,
that is the kind of action-based oriented thinking. Like, oh, that's what I'm looking at. So he'll be. I'll even take advantage that he's a hypocrite, since after all he cares about is benefiting.
Right.
Maybe I'll join in on that, and it'll end up working out for me conveniently.
Yeah.
So no, even that, like, it's the nature of things are it will hurt you, like it's going to hurt himself.
Yeah.
And also in the same way, maybe you're, for that same reason, on the other side of that same token, compelled to not work with the tzaddik because it might not benefit you, and so it's just stay away. It's not so convenient. So he's like, but no, ultimately the path of that just path, because of his framework, as Yosef said it, is going to be ultimately the best thing for you. And
and it's going to be, and we've seen many times in Mishlei before that even if it's not the best thing for you specifically as an individual, it is going to be the best for whatever the system is that you're in, and ultimately that's going to be the best for everybody. So it's worth it anyway. Yeah. All right. Good. Ayala.
Okay, this made me building on what you were saying or what Chizkiyahu was saying before. I'm not sure. But I was thinking of like the way it says the plans of the tzadikim are mishpat, meaning that like that's if someone, I guess I'm taking it as like talking to someone who is like gonna become either a tzaddik or a rasha, or striving for one of those two. And it's saying like to become a tzaddik, like make your plans mishpat. So like instead of like thinking of your plans and then like trying to make your plans as mishpat as possible, like there is a framework of mishpat, and you should like try to learn that and do that instead of like making your own plans and then like trying to like make good plans, I guess.
Okay, that sounds really good, but I'm gonna need an example of like what that looks like, because that's too abstract for me.
Okay, I guess like I don't know, maybe in terms of, let's say I want to do well on a test.
Yeah. Then
like I guess the way which I think this pasuk may be saying is like how is like what is like proven whatever good ways to do well on tests, and like these are like research shows that like these study strategies work, or like research on yourself shows that you study best in this way, whatever, as opposed to like thinking like planning. I think I'm focusing more on like specifically the planning aspect of it, instead of like making a plan of like, oh, I have free time tomorrow, so I'll study then or whatever. But like there is an objectively best way to do it or whatever, like the objective mishpat, and you're trying to do that instead of like making a plan based on what you want.
Okay, I hear the idea. And do you have something for the second half that corresponds?
Yeah, so I was thinking like to the contrary, the Rasha is trying to like get what instead of trying to like make his plan based off of, let's say the tzaddik is doing mishpat, the Rasha is trying to just like get what he wants, kind of the way, I forgot exactly the way that you put it, but I like that of like getting what he wants in whatever way possible. And like that is the trickiness, like it's necessarily going to include trickiness, like he's not trying to get around that or whatever, like he's trying to trick as much as possible to get what he wants.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I'll tell you my objection to that. I mean, it's not like a fatal flaw or anything like that. It's just and it's not even an objection based on how you're interpreting the pasuk. It's more an objection based on the idea itself. I don't know if that's better or worse, but like I feel like that developmentally, I think maybe because you phrase this developmentally, that it's talking to someone who's trying to become a tzaddik. Like, I don't know if that's the best developmental path, and I don't know if that's the developmental path that Mishlei advocates. In other words, I think definitely the way Mishlei advocates is it starts by taking whatever you want and then showing you how to align that with Chachma and get the better results, as opposed to starting off in the abstract. I'm not sure. the other thing is that I think that the Torah doesn't use that. I think the Torah really goes from action to thought rather than from thought to action. Like the main thing is you start off by doing actions of righteousness and justice, and then that shapes your thinking, as opposed to starting off from the thinking and then that trickling down to your action, So that I think that's my, yeah.
Mhm. So I was thinking, like, when you said that, like, I remember there was once a shiur, I think a Mishlei Shiur, where you described, like, if a person is inclined to, like, care about their image or whatever, they should try to, like, be a chacham. Like, they should try to portray themselves as a chacham. So I was kind of thinking something like that. I don't know if that's a specific, like, if you're inclined to, like, caring what other people think.
Yeah. It's it definitely has potential. I'm just not sold on it right now. Yeah. Possibly if you develop it more, or we could develop it more in the chat later on. Okay, Ariel.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of had a similar idea to what Ayala said. Can you just explain your objection one more time?
My objection is, the way I understood what Ayala is saying is that the reason why it focuses on thoughts and plans is because if you're trying to develop into a tzaddik, that's really what you should focus on, is making your thoughts mishpat, as opposed to starting with your action and then like aligning it with mishpat. Focus on, work on the thoughts to align them with mishpat. And my objection is, I don't think that's how Mishlei works, and I don't think that's how the Torah works. I don't think it's how Mishlei works, because Mishlei really just takes whatever you want to do and then runs with it and shows you how you can get, chachma results, which doesn't sound like what Ayala is describing, unless I'm misunderstanding it. And then the Torah starts with actions and says that the actions shape your thoughts, not starting with thoughts and saying that that's going to affect your action.
Oh, because maybe I'm just misunderstanding her idea, but I thought the idea was that if you have like a proven like system already in place, like why come up with your own system?
Yeah, so that example I like. Maybe it's the example that is not translating for me into like the rest of the pasuk. Yeah. Okay, Rivki.
Yeah, also on Ayala's idea, I actually like really like that idea, and I was just wondering if I could like maybe try to give a different example.
Sure.
So I was thinking that in terms of also like for a school setting, like let's say like Ayala said, like you have a test coming up or whatever it would be, and you have two routes you can go. You could outwardly be a tzaddik, and you could be buddy with the teacher and blah blah blah, and then cheat with one of your friends online or whatever it would be. Or you could understand that even if that would work for that setting, your life and whatever it's going to be, you're not always going to be in school. And even if somehow you are, like, you're eventually going to be found out. So I think that by like, you're put in that situation many, many times. So I think that if we think about it as like, I feel like most of our occurrences we're going through, multiple times. And if you want to be a tzaddik, like Ayala was saying, you have to recognize that even if it might be easier to do that, and even if you'll still appear as a tzaddik, at the end of the day, that thought process is not going to be a good thought process for you. Whereas if you do align yourself with that Machshavah and be like, oh, even though like it would be easier to do that, like I know that the mishpat is like really what is going to be a better like choice for me here at the end of the day.
See, but that makes it sound like the ultimate thing is going to be based on action, not on thinking.
No, but it's not though, because your action comes from thought. So that's why I'm saying that there is a difference between those two situations, because in one situation, you're getting the same results for the teacher's perspective, but from your perspective, it's completely different because
I'm misunderstanding the case. I thought in one case you're cheating, and in one case you're not.
Yeah, so I'm saying that the end result, let's say you would get like a similar grade on both. Like let's say if you studied versus if you cheated.
Right.
If you studied and you worked hard, let's say you got a 95, you cheat, you got a 95, let's say. So I'm saying that at the end of the day, that if you align yourself with the negative thought, then you're going against justice.
But the more fundamental distinction is you're in one case you are cheating, the other case you are not. Those are different actions. I don't care if you get the same results. The actions are different
thought process.
It happens to be a different thought process, but again, I thought Ayala was saying that dealing with two cases of just action, but one where you're really leading your development by focusing on the actions. The other one where you're leading and focus on the thoughts.
Oh, so I didn't understand it like that.
Okay, I don't understand
Yeah, I don't
anything
think
that's going
that's
on
what
right
I
now.
was saying.
I don't think I understand any of these ideas. Let's just because we're in terms of time, let's I want to get through a couple to Mefarshim just to get their ideas, and we could discuss this throughout the week in the chat, because I realize I'm just totally not following anything right now, and I think the fact that Ayala and Rivki think that they're on the same page means that's what's making me realize that I just completely missing it. Okay, so all right, so let's what do I want to do here? Oh, so many choices. Let's do. Oh, I found a new parish. Okay, I just want to try this out. So I've heard. Let me get the book. Okay, so this book I've had for a very long time, but it's always been in Seattle and I've never gotten it. It's Rav Hirsch on Mishlei, and I like Rav Hirsch. His Mishlei commentary is slightly strange in that it is he groups the pesukim by topic, and it doesn't explain every pasuk. And for some reason, the combination of those two factors just made me never make recourse to it. But I decided to bring a copy with me. So this is what he says. He says, the thoughts of the righteous are toward justice, but the schemings of the wicked to deceit. The mental process needed to penetrate to truth and justice is straightforward and uncomplicated. Therefore, the thoughts, machshavos of truthful and just people are equally straightforward and artless. Artless is, okay, Rivki, I don't know if you remember this. You probably don't, because I only mentioned it one day in AP English.
Crafty.
Say it again.
Like crafty, like there's like a trick to it, like an art, like I guess that's what I think of artful or art.
Yeah, right. So there's an AP language prompt in I forgot one of the 2000s that they use the word artful, and none of the students in the United States knew what that meant. And they all did really badly because of that, so I just want to say artless. Let me just look at the official definition of artless, or not official definition, but define artless is without guile or deception. Okay. It does not mean that you have no sense of art. So straightforward and without deception. Straightforward and without deception. They are directed toward justice and only justice. The thoughts of the unrighteous, on the other hand, are likened to chevel. So this is Rav Hirschian drushos on the language. A rope spun out of many threads and a net tied out of many ropes. Their thoughts are forever directed towards deception and trickery. So what appealed to me about this is for some reason, I like the way it has this very straight simplicity of the thoughts of the righteous are justice. The emphasis is, if you're trying to figure out what is going on in the Russia's mind, there's many, many schemes and twists and plots and what are his calculations and stuff. And it is interesting that there is just there's a certain simplicity and straightforwardness to the tzaddik, okay, to the tzaddik's thoughts, because it's just about justice, just what is in line with the law, what is in line with the system, best for the system, what is in line with the ends of righteousness. And Rav Hirsch doesn't spell it out, but I wanted to kind of see if we could develop that into an approach. So the question I would ask on Rav Hirsch is, so what?
Can you go back down to his?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, can you explain what you mean by so what?
My meaning, what's the practical application of this? Okay, fine. So the tzaddik's thoughts are uncomplicated because it's just justice, and the laws of the righteous, the thoughts of the wicked are just very, very complicated. And so what's the practical application? Who's this for? What is this, what is the subject? Tamar?
I'm not sold on this idea that I'm about to say, but maybe you could say that if you have maybe it's actually a practical thing, that it's actually easier to be truthful, in the long run.
Okay, I was thinking the same thing.
Easier.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, I like that as well. That we've seen this idea from different angles, not so much with the Resha'im, but with liars. That liars have to engage in a very, very a very complicated network of plots and plans and cover-ups and schemes and all that other stuff. And I guess if you're a Rasha if you're just a foolish liar, then you're going to lie here and there for your own petty ends. But if you're a Rasha and you're trying to build an empire out of this, there are just so many, lies that you're going to have to maintain. And it is just easier, more straightforward to be righteous. And if you combine that with the fact that you also do get results, which I know this pasuk is not saying, but there are many other pesukim that say that, then it really seems like the better long-term plan. Like it's just that's see, this is a very Mishlei argument for not being a Russia. Again, this is not the only argument for not being a Russia. Most of the arguments are that you're going to destroy yourself, but like the amount of stress and complication and like keeping track of things that you need to do in order to maintain your Russia, all the stuff that props up your rishus, your evil, it's just not worth it. I think that's a good approach. Yeah, Rivki?
Yeah, I think that I was kind of thinking about like the flip side of that not for us, like if we would be a tzaddik or a Russia, but when you're interacting with a person, they could kind of be either one.
Yeah.
That, like, just like the more simple approach is often the better approach. And I think that there's like this misconception that sometimes like that, if it's a more fancy and blah, 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 and this and that, like we're kind of drawn to that for some reason. And I think that this is kind of saying like, you know what? No, like you have to recognize that sometimes just like the plain and simple is better than the craziness.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I definitely see that in the repurchase thing also. All right. Let's do one more. Oh, sorry. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask on this approach now, does it mean thinking straightforward? Like there is no gray. It's kind of like black and white, or because like, I feel like sometimes even as a tzaddik, there's a gray area. So I'm just trying to understand, like.
Yeah, I don't think it's talking about gray versus black and white. I think it's talking about, when you're dealing with someone who's a tzaddik, then what you see is what you get, and what they say you can rely on. And like, there's no ulterior motives that you have to worry are going to, maybe he's doing this for some other reason, like, it is just everything is out on the table, and you could depend on them. You don't have to say, well, maybe he's telling me this now, but then if things go bad, then he's going to withdraw his support. Like it's all of these like cheshbonos, all these calculations that you would have to make with someone who operates dishonestly. You just don't have to make with a tzaddik.
Meaning like there's no sense of security speaking with the Russia.
Correct. Yeah. So that would be so tomorrow was saying something different, which is talking to someone who is on the path to becoming a tzaddik or becoming a Rasha. But it's also true, you're pointing out, it's also true that like in terms of who you deal with, then it's going to be much more security in dealing with a tzaddik. Yeah. Which again, why? Okay, fine. So what? Well, why would someone deal with a Rasha? Well, sometimes Resha'im are very powerful and rich and can make things happen. But sometimes you end up like trying to deal with them, and then you get into like you have to sue them or something like that. I don't know, hypothetically. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's do one more other of the Mefarshim who we just never do. The Gra, who again, similar thing is now that I brought the Sefer to New York, then I've been looking at it more. I don't know if I have an idea for this, but he says Machshavah Tzadikim mishpat. Ki b'hatzadikim ma'ashem choshvim hu mishpat. With the tzadikim, what they think is mishpat, ve'in ola al machashavtam davar she'eno k'mishpat, and nothing occurs to their thinking which is not in line with mishpat. Okay. Takbulus Resha'im mirma, aval harashayim kol takbulosam af ma shehim medabrim dvarim tovim. All of their strategies, even that which they speak when they speak good things, their intention is to deceive people with the good statements, with their good statements. And the reason why I use is one word for one and the other word for the other, because good thoughts God will count as actions. But okay, that's interesting. But machshavos raos, bad machshavos, God does not count them into maaseh until you make them into strategies. Okay, I don't know what he's saying.
Your face just now is like one of the funnier things I've seen. Just like you just like backed up.
Say again.
No, your face just now was just like like physically like backed up. You're like,
wait,
yeah.
Doesn't this go against like the Gemara that says, if you commit a chait twice, and if you think about it, then it's like you did it for the third time? Like here
We
is
don't, we don't, all the Onim and Rishonim say that we don't bring proofs from the Drashim. Next. Yeah, Chizkiyahu.
Sounds
come
like
on.
it's well, at least what the Gra is saying at the end there is he's kind of exemplifying Hashem's Rachamim, in that like when you even intend to do like something like a mitzvah or something, Hashem is quicker to like count it as like on your merit. And so whereas like I don't know, like the example of like, you know, we don't even if we know that someone's going to commit an avera until like they, you know, like do it, we don't give him like a sentence right away. And so I guess is quite as far, because he's just saying as long as you make a strategy, there's like a conspiracy to commit the thing, but he's slower to be like, okay, I'm going to give you an opportunity to kind of to not follow through with this, or to like not really entertain this idea, whereas he's, you know, he doesn't have such a high bar when it comes to like,
okay, that's a good description of it, right? But the question is, how does it work and what do we get out of it, right? In other words, let's make sure we get the facts first of all. You said the facts right, but I just want to state it again, that he's saying that if you have a good machshava, then that will count as action. If you have a bad machshava, it won't count as action, but if that machshava develops into a strategy, then it does count as action, right? So the question is why and so what?
Oh, and then so I was going to say, so why is because there's a natural leaning for a human being to, we already have kind of self-interested desires, or our thoughts tend to go towards how do I benefit?
Right.
That in turn tends to usually end up with something that's not going to help the system.
Right.
So there has to be some leniency to help you to give you time to realize, oh wait, if I go through with this, then that would actually hurt the system. Now I see why I shouldn't do that. Whereas if you're thinking about like something good, well, that inherently is already outside of like, it's less like your nature. So it requires more like of an effort. So you don't need to go even further. You already went pretty far in the fact that you're thinking about how do I benefit the system. That's already what the conclusion should be. Like what you should finally reaching, you know. I
was thinking along similar lines, but let me call on Ariel first before I state what I'm thinking. Yeah,
I think I know what you're thinking about it, so I'm going to just say it.
Okay.
So before you cut me off, okay, I was gonna say that the one thing you learn from that Gemara is that if, you know, like at a certain point, like when you do these chatam for multiple times, it becomes a part of your nature. So just even by you thinking about it, it's as if you did it because you're already that individual who's gonna be doing it. You know, it's like that's how it's gonna. Versus like if you're a tzaddik, right? You know, you that's who you are. That's a part of your nature to do good things. And it's kind of like an assumption that you're going to do good things. You know, that's why, like in that Gemara, it says, even if a tzaddik thinks about doing something bad, like it's as if he didn't do it versus, someone who did it multiple times because, that's a part of his nature.
Okay. I mean, first of all, the reason why I cut you off is because of the Gra, because if you have a bad idea, then it's as if you already executed. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I know why you cut me off.
No. So I think what you're saying is different than what Chizkiyahu was saying.
No, but he didn't say it's a part of your nature?
He said the word nature, yes. But I think he's saying something different. Is that I think what Chizkiyahu was saying is like this, okay, and then this is also what I was thinking, but let me state this because I got this clearer than what I'm hearing from you, and then you could clarify, and then we'll wrap it up. Is a human being is a Tzelem Elokim, okay? And we're the only creatures, all creatures are subject to God's justice, but we can actually understand God's justice and like further it with our own choices. Like we can design plans to carry out justice in ways that like animals can't do, So Machshavah for justice is in line with our nature. Okay. However, we have a dual nature, so to speak. We are not just rational, but we're rational animals. And like Chizkiyahu was saying is like, the psyche the animalistic part of us tends towards like self-interested behavior, which often is not good for the system. Okay. And so the thing is when we have a thought that is in line with human nature, meaning like a machshava for justice, so then God rewards that as though we did it, because like let's say, for example, you intend to give tzedakah, and like someone runs up and snatches the bill from your hand. For all intents and purposes, as a human action, as a decision, you gave tzedakah. Like you were about to give that money, and the fact that you couldn't do it, fine. So like, but as a decision, like you did the act of tzedakah in terms of your own perfection. Okay, so that's why he counts it as an action. But in terms of this lower part of your nature, God realizes that that's part of that as well. This part I don't understand as clearly, but God factors that in. Use Chizkiyahu's way of framing is like God has rachamim, but then the tachbulos, once you actually go, tachbulos require lots of thinking. Once you actually like come up with an elaborate scheme, maybe tachbulos is like a long-term plan. Maybe it's like a racket that you have going. Once you come up with a long-term unjust scheme, that is like a corruption of your nature, So God rewards. So let's put it this way: God rewards and punishes you for things that stem from or affect your nature. So when you have a machshavah for mishpat, that you get rewarded for, because that's coming from your tzelem elokim. When you take your tzelem elokim and you subordinate it to something that is like corrupt thinking to make an alternative system that undermines everything, that's punishable because that's a corruption of your nature. But a simple machshavah for bad, that's just like the lower part of you asserting itself. That's just like an animal. God's not going to punish you for that. Something like that. And I have to look at the Gemara you're saying, Ariel, in order to really pass judgment on it. So I'd have to look at it.
No, I mean, the idea, I really still think that, it's, we're not really far off from what we're, saying. Yeah. I mean, between, the two approaches, because like, I think at the end of the day, we're both saying that, if it's your nature to be a Russia and you're scheming these things, that's kind of like who you are at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Right, right, that's true. Yeah.
So like, I think that you're already kind of stamping yourself as an individual, and but you're having these tachbulos. It's like, well, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so let's try to do a quick run through of all the ideas. Okay, and then we'll stop for that. Okay, so Yosef's idea was you have to be on guard based on how Tzadikim operate and how Resha'im operate, and the mistake is to assume that people who are going to operate in the same way that you do. So with the Russia, you're going to assume, oh, well, I'm an honest guy. What I say is what I mean, and therefore the Russia is going to do that. And the answer is no, it's not. And we can combine that with what Yosef said in adding on to someone else's idea. Oh no, that was a different thing. That no one thinks that the Russia is going to do it to them, right? And with the tzaddik, then I think we need to flesh this out a little bit more. But like, we need to flesh that out more about how this applies to a tzaddik. Okay, but we're not going to do that tonight. Okay, Ariel said you should not judge the tzaddik or the Russia based on whether the outcome of their plan affects you beneficially or detrimentally. If the Russia does something that affects you beneficially, you have to realize he's engaging in mirma, warning, and this could come back to bite you, it could come back to betray you, it could affect you badly in terms of the system. Don't just get duped by the fact that it worked out in your favor. Similarly, when the tzaddikim does something that ends up being a mishpat that harms you, don't take it personally and dismiss the tzaddik and like get mad at him and like fire him. No, he's doing something that's good for the system. And yeah, it didn't work out for you this time, but it's good for the system as a whole. Rivki's idea is that Rivki was really responding to the question of why is it focused on the thoughts, not the actions, because you can't know the person's thoughts except by their track record of their actions. So it's tempting to hear a Russia present a plan that looks very, very appealing and straightforward and honest and effective. But if he has a track record of having lied to many people, you need to assume that is how he's doing it right now also, and you just can't see through his lie. And similarly with the tzaddik, it might be that the tzaddik like does not seem to be making any sense, and maybe it even looks like a bad plan or detrimental. But if he has a track record of mishpat that the decisions he's making have improved the system, then there's a certain trust that you can have that that's how it's going to work out here. Chizkiyahu's approach was about how the tzaddik and the Russia view the world. The tzaddik is someone who's matzdik the world, that he's seeking to understand and see the justice in the world. And if he has some sort of like feeling of injustice or suffering or victimhood, he's going to realize like, no, that's a distortion on my part. I have to see how God's justice is here. The Rasha is going to do the opposite. If something doesn't go his way, he's going to attach the fault to God and then warp everything through lying to himself to create a way of viewing the world that like serves his own agenda and subjective thing. And Yosef said that you could use that as a diagnostic tool if you find yourself thinking in a certain area to see if you're, not fully in line with Tzidkus there. Moshe's idea essentially was about the essential nature of the Rasha and the Tzaddik, about the way that they're going to always operate, that the Tzaddik will always operate honestly with justice, and the Rasha will not. And it doesn't matter. And then that's just intrinsically how they operate. And then we translated that practically to say that don't give into the temptation to say that the Rasha is not going to treat you this way. And with the Tzaddik, then even if you don't like him or you clashed with him or whatever, then you should know that this is going to be a consistent treatment. Alex and I had our half-baked ideas, which I can no longer remember enough to say without mixing it with other stuff. Rav Hirsch had his idea, and I am not even going to try to summarize Ayala and Rifki, sorry. And then Rav Hirsch had the idea of that it's simpler to be a tzaddik because you don't have to maintain this whole network of lies, and also when you interact with a tzaddik, you don't have to worry about contending with this whole network of lies. And then the Gra had the idea of God rewarding you for this is the second idea of the Gra, secondary idea that uses Machshavah for good because God rewards that, because that stems from your nature. You get like the gold coin if you like think just thoughts, even if you don't get to implement them. And then if you think unjust thoughts, that itself is God's not going to judge you harshly on, because that's just your animal nature reasserting itself. But if you corrupt your Tzelem Elokim by coming up with strategies to undermine justice, that is punishable. Okay, so this ended up being a very fruitful pasuk, even though it was seemingly simple. So that was good. That worked out. Okay. As far as I know, then I am planning to have shiur next Monday. So I will let you know if that changes, but I don't expect it to change. So thanks for coming. Until next time.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank
Bye.
you.